Leave now. Don't say anything to your son. I'm Tom Wilson, and that text just shattered my world. My daughter-in-law Emma planned this destruction perfectly. The fancy restaurant where my 3 grandchildren were finally laughing again after losing Grandma 6 months ago. The expensive wine, the public setting, even the timing. Right when my 5-year-old granddaughter was showing me her drawing of Grandma Sarah. They wanted me gone, erased from my family's story, convinced my son that his grieving father was too broken, too poor, too dangerous for their children. What Emma didn't know? I owned every brick of the building she was using to destroy me, every wine glass, every table where other families were now watching her try to tear mine apart. I looked at my granddaughter, put down my phone, and decided Sarah's memory deserved better. Drop a comment if you've ever been attacked when you were most vulnerable. I read every single story you share. This is how 30 years of quiet empire building became the most brutal 10 minutes of family justice ever caught on camera. Saturday evening at Sterling Reserve Steakhouse. Table 8, round family table, burgundy leather seats with a perfect view of the main dining room. I should have known Emma had chosen this table for maximum visibility, maximum humiliation. "Tom, you look tired," Emma said the moment I sat down. My daughter-in-law, 29 years old, designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Not "hello, Dad," not "thanks for coming," just an immediate assessment of my decline. I was wearing my cleanest Carhartt shirt, $35 from the farm supply store, and pressed Levi's that Sarah had bought me last Christmas. Emma wore a $4,000 Valentino dress. Her parents, Richard and Margaret Sterling, looked like they'd stepped off the pages of a luxury magazine. "Grandpa Tom!" My 5-year-old granddaughter Lily launched herself into my arms. "I missed you." Emma's smile was ice. "Lily, sweetie, remember what we talked about? Grandpa Tom is still adjusting after Grandma Sarah." Still adjusting. 6 months after burying my wife of 30 years, I was still adjusting. My son Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Dad, how was your week?" "Busy. 4 job sites running, payroll for 512 employees." Richard Sterling examined the wine list like he was conducting surgery. "Tom, at your age, don't you think it's time to slow down? Most men your age are enjoying retirement, spending time with hobbies instead of manual labor. Manual labor." He said it like I was digging ditches. "I enjoy working." "But surely," Margaret leaned forward, her $25,000 Cartier watch catching the light, "you must be concerned about your financial stability, especially after what Sarah went through. The cancer treatment. They thought it bankrupted me." My 7-year-old grandson Charlie looked confused. "Grandpa Tom builds important stuff. He built our school." "That's nice, dear." Margaret patted his head like he was a house pet. "But building things and managing real wealth are completely different skills." The server approached. Young woman, maybe 23, nervous energy. Her name tag read Ashley. She glanced at me, did a double take, then caught herself. "Good evening, everyone. Can I start you with wine tonight?" "Actually," Emma's voice carried across our section, "we're having a family discussion about my father-in-law's future. Perhaps something appropriate for the occasion?" Richard pointed to the wine list. "The Dom Perignon P2, $1,200. Tom's treating tonight, aren't you? $1,200. Like that number meant nothing to people who'd never earned it. "Grandpa Tom always pays," 8-year-old Sophie said loyally. "With what money, sweetheart?" Emma's voice was honey over broken glass. "Your grandpa doesn't have that kind of income anymore. Not since he had to focus on other things. Other things. Taking care of my dying wife." Ashley was looking at me strangely. Recognition flickered in her eyes before she masked it. "I'll bring the Dom Perignon," she said carefully. "And Ashley," I said quietly, "could you let Danny know I'm here? When he has a moment." Ashley nodded quickly and hurried toward the kitchen. "Who's Danny?" Emma asked sharply. "Just someone I know." Margaret pulled out her phone, scrolling through what looked like financial documents. "Tom, we need to discuss something important. About the children's security. Their future stability." She showed pictures on her screen. "Jake's house has a mortgage of $380,000. The children's college funds are inadequate. And frankly, after Sarah's medical expenses, we're concerned about your ability to contribute meaningfully to their welfare." Medical expenses. Sarah's 18-month battle with cancer. $340,000 in treatment costs. They assumed it destroyed me financially. Jake was staring at his plate, caught between his wife's pressure and something else. Maybe the memory of who his father used to be. The children need stability, Richard continued, his voice getting louder. They need grandparents who can provide real opportunities, not just sentimentality. That's when my phone buzzed. But here's what they didn't know about the sentimental old man sitting at their table. "Everything okay, Dad?" Jake asked, noticing my face after reading Emma's text. I nodded, but my mind was racing through 30 years of memories. Sarah and I sitting at this very table on our 25th anniversary, dreaming about buying a place like this someday. Her hand in mine as we made plans neither of us thought we'd live to see. This wasn't just about dinner anymore. This was about legacy, about what my grandchildren would remember about their grandfather, about whether 3 decades of building something meaningful would be reduced to Emma's narrative of a broken old man who couldn't let go. "Tom," Emma's voice cut through my thoughts. "You seem distracted. Perhaps this conversation is overwhelming for you?" Overwhelming. Like I was some doddering fool who couldn't handle adult discussions. "I'm fine." "Are you, though?" Emma's voice was getting sharper. "Because frankly, Jake and I have been discussing your situation, your emotional state since Sarah passed, your inability to accept help, your insistence on maintaining this facade of independence." Facade of independence. Sarah would have walked out by now. "Emma," Jake started, but she cut him off. "No, Jake. This needs to be said, for the children's sake." Emma turned to face me directly. "Tom, you're 58 years old. You lost your wife 6 months ago. You're clearly struggling financially. We've seen the mail piling up at your house. The late notices? The collection calls?" Collection calls. There hadn't been any, but Emma was building her case. Margaret nodded supportively. "We understand grief, Tom. But grief becomes selfish when it starts affecting the grandchildren. How is it affecting them?" "Look at them," Emma gestured to the kids who were coloring quietly. "They're confused. They don't understand why Grandpa Tom lives in that tiny rental house while Grandma and Grandpa Sterling can take them on real vacations. To Europe, to Disney World first class. I took them to Disney World last month." "On our credit card," Emma shot back. "We saw the charges, Tom. $6,000 you couldn't afford." The lie was so casual, so practiced, I almost believed it myself for a second. Richard leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was sharing a medical diagnosis. "Tom, we know about the second mortgage you took out during Sarah's treatment. We know about the medical debt, the credit cards you maxed out trying to pay for experimental treatments. They'd been investigating my finances, or creating a fiction that sounded convincing. The point is," Margaret added gently, "you did everything you could for Sarah. You were a devoted husband, but now it's time to let people who can actually help these children step up. People who can actually help. Translation, people with money." Lily tugged on my sleeve. "Grandpa Tom, are you sad?" "No, sweetheart, just thinking. About Grandma Sarah. Among other things." Emma's expression softened, but only for the performance. "See, Tom, even Lily can tell you're struggling. Children pick up on instability, on financial stress, on inappropriate emotional dependence. Inappropriate emotional dependence. Because loving my grandchildren was somehow unhealthy." "What are you proposing?" I asked. Emma exchanged glances with her parents. They'd rehearsed this. "Supervised visits," Richard said. "Maybe Sunday afternoons. Here at the restaurant, where we can all be together. Family dinners where the children aren't exposed to uncertainty. Supervised visits. Like I was a flight risk. And financially," Margaret continued, "we'd be happy to establish proper college funds. Real trust funds. The children could attend Westminster Academy. $32,000 a year, but worth every penny. Summer programs in Switzerland. Language immersion in France. They were buying my grandchildren, brick by brick, experience by experience." "Jake," I said quietly, "what do you think about all this?" My son looked trapped, torn between his wife's expectations and something deeper. Maybe the memory of the man who'd worked 2 jobs to put him through college, who'd never missed a game, a recital, a graduation. "Dad, I think we all want what's best for the kids. What's best for the kids, not what's best for our family. Not what's best for the memory of the woman who'd loved these children fierce and true." Ashley reappeared with the champagne. $1,200 in a bottle. She poured it like she was handling liquid gold, but her eyes kept darting toward the kitchen entrance. "Tom," Emma said after Ashley left, "I need you to understand something. The children are at an impressionable age. They need to see examples of success, of stability, of forward momentum." And I don't represent those things. You represent the past, she said with devastating simplicity. Sarah's gone. Your construction business is what it is. Your living situation is temporary at best. The children need to focus on their future, not get pulled backward into grief and limitation. That's when I saw movement from the kitchen. Danny Martinez was walking toward our table, carrying something in his hands. Sarah's leather portfolio. The one she'd made me promise to show the family when the time was right. The time was right. Richard Sterling raised his champagne glass with theatrical precision. To difficult conversations, and making hard choices for the people we love. I didn't drink, neither did Jake. The children were too young to understand the toast, but they sensed the tension. "Tom, you look resistant to this discussion," Emma observed. "Is it the pride talking? Because pride becomes destructive when it hurts innocent children." "I'm not hurting anyone. Aren't you?" Emma's voice began to carry to neighboring tables. "Let's be honest here. You're a 58-year-old widower, living in a rental house, working construction jobs that men half your age struggle with. Your wife died because—" She paused, letting the silence do the work. "Because what, Emma?" "Because you couldn't afford the best care, the experimental treatments, the private specialists who might have saved her." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Every parent at nearby tables was now openly listening. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" "Tom, we researched Sarah's treatment, Mercy General Hospital, insurance coverage, the limitations you accepted because you couldn't afford alternatives." Richard leaned forward aggressively. "My daughter Sarah deserved better than dying in a public hospital while you did whatever it is you do for a living. Your daughter Sarah, like my wife of 30 years, belonged to them. Sarah received excellent care." "Did she?" Margaret's voice was getting shrill. "Because from where we sat watching our daughter waste away while you made practical decisions about treatment options, it looked like medical neglect." Medical neglect. The phrase was designed to destroy me publicly. Jake finally found his voice. "Mom, that's not fair. Dad did everything he could afford," Emma interrupted. "Which wasn't enough, was it, Tom?" Lily started crying. The adults were saying mean things about Grandma Sarah, and she didn't understand why. "You're upsetting the children," I said quietly. "The children are upset because they're witnessing their grandfather's denial," Emma replied. "Tom, Sarah's dead because you couldn't provide adequate health care. The children's future is at risk because you can't provide adequate financial support. At what point do you stop being selfish and start being realistic?" The dining room was getting quieter. This was better than theater for these people. Richard stood up, towering over the table in his expensive suit. "Tom, let me make this simple. These children deserve grandparents who can actually contribute to their welfare, not someone who killed their grandmother through inadequate medical coverage." Killed their grandmother. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Charlie, my 7-year-old grandson, looked at me with confused eyes. "Grandpa Tom, did you hurt Grandma Sarah?" "No, buddy. I loved Grandma Sarah more than anything in the world." "Then why are they saying mean things?" Emma knelt beside his chair. "Charlie, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Grandpa Tom made some mistakes with Grandma Sarah's medicine. That's why she's not with us anymore. She was poisoning my grandchildren against me, right here, right now, in front of witnesses." "Emma," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside, "that's enough." "Is it? Because I don't think it's nearly enough." She stood up, addressing the dining room as much as our table. "For 6 months I've watched this man drag our family down with his grief, his denial, his financial instability. He's traumatizing these children with his inability to accept reality." "What reality? That you failed, Sarah. That you're failing these children. That you need to step back and let people who actually have resources take care of what matters." Margaret pulled out her phone and started recording. "Tom, for the record, we're offering to provide these children with everything they need. Private schools, college funds, international travel, cultural opportunities. What can you offer them?" "I can offer them love." Richard's laugh was cruel. "Love doesn't pay for Harvard tuition. Love didn't save Sarah's life. Love is what broke people use when they can't provide anything real." The business dinner at table 6 had stopped eating entirely. They were recording with their phones now. "Grandpa Tom," Sophie whispered, "are you poor?" "No, sweetheart." "He is," Emma said firmly. "Grandpa Tom is poor and sad, and he can't take care of you the way Grandma and Grandpa Sterling can." That's when Lily, my 5-year-old granddaughter, climbed into my lap, and put her arms around my neck. "I don't care if you're poor, Grandpa Tom. I love you anyway." The innocence of it, the pure, uncomplicated love that Emma was trying to destroy with her spreadsheets and accusations. "See?" Emma's voice was triumphant. "Even Lily pities him. That's not healthy, Tom. Children shouldn't have to take care of adults emotionally." "Emma," Jake's voice was warning now, "you're going too far." "Am I? Or am I finally going far enough?" She turned to face the dining room, making sure her voice carried. "This man let his wife die rather than admit he couldn't afford proper treatment. Now he's clinging to his grandchildren because he can't accept that he has nothing left to offer them." The silence that followed was deafening. But in that silence, I heard footsteps approaching from the kitchen. Danny Martinez was walking toward our table, Sarah's leather portfolio in his hands, and a look on his face that said everything was about to change. "Mr. Wilson?" Danny's voice carried clearly across the dining room. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but you asked me to bring these when the family was all together." Emma looked confused, Margaret annoyed at the interruption, but Jake was staring at the portfolio like he recognized it. Because he did. It was the same one Sarah had kept our most important documents in for 30 years. And Danny Martinez wasn't just some server. He was the general manager of the restaurant empire my late wife and I had built together. "I'm sorry," Emma said with icy politeness, "but we're having a private family discussion." Danny Martinez smiled respectfully, 5'8", built like he'd been wrestling construction equipment for decades, wearing a perfectly pressed manager's uniform with a small gold pin on his lapel. "Ma'am, I'm Danny Martinez, general manager. Mr. Wilson asked me to bring some documents when his family was gathered. I can wait if this isn't a good time." "Documents for what?" Richard's eyebrows shot up. Danny glanced at me. I gave him the slightest nod. "Business documents, sir. Mrs. Wilson, Sarah, left specific instructions about sharing certain information with the family." "Sarah's instructions?" Emma's confident expression flickered. "What kind of instructions?" Margaret demanded. "Financial planning documents, legacy materials, things Mrs. Wilson wanted the grandchildren to understand about their inheritance." Inheritance. The word hit Emma like cold water. Ashley appeared with fresh champagne flutes, pouring Dom Perignon without being asked. "Compliments of the house, Mr. Wilson." "I didn't order more champagne," Richard protested. "It's not for you, sir," Ashley said with barely concealed satisfaction. Jake was studying Danny's face. "Have we met before?" "Yes, sir. I've been working with your father for 20 years, since before you graduated college." 20 years. Emma was doing rapid calculations. Danny opened the leather portfolio slightly, just enough for us to see Sarah's handwriting on manila folders. "Mrs. Wilson was very specific about timing. She said when the family started discussing finances and the children's future, these documents should be shared." "What's in them?" Emma's voice had lost its commanding tone. "Legacy information. Property holdings, educational trust funds Mrs. Wilson established." Danny's voice carried clearly across the dining room. She was very concerned about people underestimating Mr. Wilson after she passed. Charlie tugged on my sleeve. "Grandpa Tom, what's a trust fund?" "It's money set aside for your future, buddy." "How much money?" Danny consulted a document. "For you, Charlie. As of last month, $470,000. For college, graduate school, and your first house down payment." Emma's face went pale. $470,000? Sophie's fund is at $420,000. Lily's is at $390,000. Mrs. Wilson started them when each child was born. Margaret was gripping her champagne glass like it might fly away. "That's over $1 million. "Conservative estimates," Danny replied. "The funds are invested in growth portfolios. By the time the children reach 18, we project each account will exceed $700,000. Richard was staring at the portfolio like it contained state secrets. "How is that possible?" "Mrs. Wilson was very good with financial planning," Danny said diplomatically. Emma found her voice. "But Tom's been struggling financially. The medical bills, the rental house, the—" "Medical bills?" Danny looked confused. "Mrs. Wilson's treatment was fully covered. The insurance settlement alone was $600,000, plus the hospital's charitable foundation contribution." The dining room was getting interested now. Conversations were stopping at nearby tables. Ashley reappeared. "Mr. Martinez, the couple at table 12 is asking about the Wilson Foundation Scholarship Program. Should I give them a brochure?" "The Wilson Foundation?" Jake's voice cracked. Danny nodded. "Your parents established it during Mrs. Wilson's treatment. Full-ride scholarships for cancer patients' children. They've funded 47 students through college so far. 47 students? Emma whispered. Mrs. Wilson insisted on anonymous donations. She didn't want recognition, just results. Sophie looked up from her coloring. Grandpa Tom and Grandma Sarah helped kids go to school? They helped a lot of kids, sweetheart, and they made sure you and your brother and sister would never have to worry about school either. Richard was leaning forward aggressively. Even if this is all true, it doesn't change the fundamental issue. Tom's living situation, his work, his emotional state. Oh, Danny interrupted politely, about Mr. Wilson's work situation. He pulled out another folder. Mrs. Wilson wanted me to share this when people started questioning Mr. Wilson's, how did she put it? Earning potential. Emma's hands were shaking now, because Sarah Wilson had always been 3 steps ahead of everyone else, and she'd left specific instructions about what to do with people who tried to exploit her husband's grief. Richard Sterling was a man accustomed to controlling narratives. His recovery was swift, calculated, and completely wrong. Well, he said, straightening his $4,000 tie, this is all very touching, but having some savings doesn't change the core issue here. Danny raised an eyebrow. What core issue would that be, sir? Tom's inability to provide proper medical care for Sarah, his current living situation, his emotional instability since her death. Emma nodded vigorously. Exactly. Money in accounts doesn't change the fact that he let Sarah die in a public hospital when private treatment might have saved her. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Danny's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Ma'am, I'm not sure where you got your information, but Mrs. Wilson didn't receive treatment at Mercy General. Yes, she did. We researched. She received treatment at Northside Cancer Institute, private facility, top specialists in the Southeast. Emma's confidence wavered. But the insurance limitations? There were no insurance limitations. Mr. Wilson paid for private treatment, private specialists, experimental therapies. The total cost was approximately $340,000. $340,000. Emma had used that exact number earlier. Paid in full, Danny continued, his voice carrying clearly across the dining room. Mr. Wilson never missed a single payment. Never filed for financial assistance. Never compromised on Mrs. Wilson's care. The dining room was dead silent now. Richard leaned forward desperately. Even so, the emotional trauma of losing a spouse, the inability to move forward. Move forward? Danny pulled out a thick folder. Mr. Wilson has been moving forward continuously. Would you like to see his work portfolio? His work portfolio? Danny spread documents across our table like he was dealing cards. Business licenses, property deeds, construction contracts. Wilson Construction Company, founded 1994. Current projects include the new Children's Hospital Wing, the university expansion, and the downtown medical complex. Jake's mouth fell open. Dad, you're building the Children's Hospital? The Cancer Treatment Wing, Danny clarified. $247 million project. Mr. Wilson's company won the bid over 32 competitors. Emma was reading the documents, her face growing paler with each page. But this says, she pointed at a contract, this says Wilson Construction employs over 500 people. 512 as of last week, Danny confirmed. Mr. Wilson is the largest private employer in the county. Margaret was gripping her purse like a life preserver. That can't be right. He lives in a rental house. He drives an old truck. Mr. Wilson chooses to live simply. His personal residence is the smallest item in his real estate portfolio. Richard stood up, towering over Danny in his expensive suit. You're telling me this man in work clothes, driving a pickup truck, is some kind of business mogul? I'm telling you that appearances can be deceiving, sir. That's when Ashley approached with a wireless microphone. Mr. Martinez, you wanted to address the dining room? The dining room. Danny was going to speak to everyone. Emma's eyes went wide. What are you doing? Danny took the microphone and stood up. His voice carried clearly across the restaurant. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting your evening, but I'd like to share something about the gentleman at table 8. Every conversation stopped. Every phone came out. Tom Wilson lost his wife Sarah 6 months ago after an 18-month battle with cancer. During that time, he never missed a day of work, never missed a payment on her treatment, never compromised on her care. The restaurant was completely silent. While caring for his dying wife, Mr. Wilson continued to operate the largest construction company in Georgia. He maintained employment for over 500 families. He funded scholarships for 47 students. He built the cancer treatment wing, where many of your relatives have received life-saving care. Emma was shrinking into her chair. Tonight, some people at this table have accused Mr. Wilson of letting his wife die due to inadequate medical care. They've called him financially unstable. They've questioned his fitness as a grandfather. Danny's voice was getting stronger. I've worked for Tom Wilson for 20 years. I've watched him pay for employees' children's medical bills. I've seen him work through weekends to make payroll during economic downturns. I've witnessed him turn down million-dollar contracts because they would require laying off long-time workers. The dining room was mesmerized. 6 months ago, Sarah Wilson died surrounded by her family, in a private room with the best medical care money could buy. She died knowing her husband had spent every resource, called in every favor, and fought every battle possible to save her life. Danny looked directly at Emma. She also died knowing that some people would try to exploit her husband's grief. She left specific instructions about what to do with those people. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. What instructions? Danny pulled out a handwritten letter. Mrs. Wilson's final wishes regarding family members who questioned her husband's character or fitness as a grandfather. The letter was in Sarah's unmistakable handwriting. Even from across the table, Jake recognized his mother's script. She wrote this? Jake asked. 3 weeks before she died. She asked me to read it aloud if anyone ever accused her husband of failing her or her family. Danny unfolded the letter and began to read. If you're hearing this, it means someone has accused my husband Tom of not providing adequate care during my illness or of being unfit to care for our grandchildren after my death. Emma's hands were covering her face now. To those people, I want to say this. Tom Wilson saved my life every single day for 18 months. Not medically. The cancer did what cancer does, but emotionally, spiritually, and yes, financially. He spent our entire construction company profits on experimental treatments. He mortgaged properties to pay for specialists. He worked 18-hour days to keep our employees paid while spending every free moment by my side. The dining room was completely still. If you're questioning his fitness as a grandfather, you're questioning the judgment of the woman who chose him as a partner 30 years ago. You're dishonoring the memory of someone who died knowing she was completely, utterly, perfectly loved. Danny folded the letter carefully. Mrs. Wilson concluded by saying that anyone who exploited her husband's grief or tried to separate him from his grandchildren should be treated as enemies of her family. He looked directly at Emma and her parents. She left very specific instructions about enemies of her family. As Danny folded Sarah's letter, something remarkable happened. The dining room didn't return to normal conversation. Instead, a wave of understanding spread outward from our table like ripples on water. People weren't just watching anymore. They were witnessing. Mrs. Wilson also left business instructions, Danny continued, pulling out a thick manila folder. She wanted certain information shared if anyone questioned Mr. Wilson's financial stability or business acumen. Emma was staring at the folder like it contained a bomb. Danny opened it methodically. Wilson Construction Company, founded 1994 with a $20,000 loan. Current annual revenue, $47 million. $47 million. The number echoed across the restaurant. Sterling Reserve Restaurant Group, acquired 2021. 12 locations across 3 states. Annual revenue, $34 million. Jake's face went completely white. Dad, you own restaurants? Sterling Reserve, Danny confirmed, including this location where we're sitting right now. The silence was deafening. You own this restaurant? Emma's voice cracked. Mr. Wilson owns the entire chain. Birmingham, Nashville, Chattanooga, Huntsville, Columbus, Augusta, Savannah, Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta, and here. Richard was gripping the table edge. That's impossible. Is it? Mrs. Wilson documented everything. Danny pulled out property deeds, acquisition agreements, financial statements. Total portfolio value, $58 million. $58 million. Margaret was doing rapid math on her phone. But he lives in a rental house. Mr. Wilson owns 47 properties across 3 states. He chooses to live in a rental because his personal residence is irrelevant to his business operations. Danny spread the documents across our table like evidence in a court case. Mrs. Wilson was particularly proud of the scholarship program. 47 students, full rides through college, total educational investment, $6.2 million. Lily tugged on my sleeve. Grandpa Tom, you helped kids go to school. Grandpa Tom and Grandma Sarah helped a lot of kids, sweetheart. Ashley appeared with a fresh bottle of champagne, not Dom Perignon this time, but Armand de Brignac, $800 retail. From the staff, Mr. Wilson. We wanted to honor Mrs. Wilson's memory. Thank you, Ashley. Emma was reading financial statements, her hands shaking. This shows monthly revenue of $2.8 million. Across all properties, yes, ma'am. Mrs. Wilson insisted on conservative projections. Charlie looked up from his coloring. Is Grandpa Tom famous? Danny smiled. Your grandpa employs 512 people directly, another 200 through subcontractors. When people in this city need work, they call Wilson Construction. But the pickup truck, Margaret protested weakly. The work clothes. Mr. Wilson drives a truck because he visits construction sites daily. He wears work clothes because he works with his hands. Mrs. Wilson always said success is what you build, not what you wear. Jake was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to respect the man, not the money. Danny pulled out another document. Mrs. Wilson also left instructions about the grandchildren's education. We already heard about the trust funds, Emma said desperately. Not just trust funds. Full scholarships to any university they choose, graduate school included, plus study abroad programs, internships, mentorships. Danny consulted his notes. Mrs. Wilson budgeted $2 million per child for complete educational support. $2 million each? Richard's voice was faint. Mrs. Wilson believed education was the best investment. She also established the Sarah Wilson Cancer Research Foundation. Annual budget, $1.5 million. Sophie looked up from her artwork. There's a foundation named after Grandma Sarah? The cancer treatment wing your grandpa's building? It's named the Sarah Wilson Family Care Center. Families dealing with cancer will receive free counseling, financial assistance, and childcare support. The dining room was completely silent now. Even the kitchen had gone quiet. Danny stood up and addressed the restaurant. Ladies and gentlemen, I've worked for Tom Wilson for 20 years. I've seen him work through the night to make payroll during recessions. I've watched him pay for employees' medical bills. I've witnessed him turn down profitable contracts because they would require compromising safety standards. The audience was mesmerized. 6 months ago, he lost the love of his life after spending every resource trying to save her. Instead of retreating, instead of giving up, he's worked harder than ever. The Children's Hospital Wing, the Cancer Research Foundation, the scholarship programs, all expanded since Mrs. Wilson's death. Danny looked directly at Emma and her parents. Tonight, some people accuse this man of medical neglect, of financial instability, of being unfit to care for his grandchildren. The crowd was leaning forward. These people have been eating at his restaurants for 6 months, running up bills they never saw, because Mr. Wilson instructed us to comp every meal. Emma's face went scarlet. They questioned his ability to provide for his grandchildren while sitting in the restaurant he owns, drinking wine he paid for, planning their children's futures with money from college funds he established. Richard tried to interrupt. This is justice, Danny said firmly. Mrs. Wilson left specific instructions about people who tried to exploit her husband's grief or separate him from his grandchildren. He pulled out one final document. A list of individuals permanently banned from all Wilson family properties and businesses. Emma's voice was barely audible. Permanently banned? Mrs. Wilson was very clear. Anyone who questioned her husband's character or fitness as a grandfather, anyone who tried to manipulate his grief for personal gain, anyone who attempted to poison his grandchildren against him, permanent exclusion from the family legacy. Danny looked around the dining room, then back at our table. She also left instructions about tonight's bill. He consulted his tablet. Dom Perignon, appetizers, entrees you ordered but didn't eat, $4,218. We can pay, Richard said quickly. I'm sure you can. But Mrs. Wilson's instructions were specific. Anyone who accuses her husband of being financially inadequate should prove their own financial stability by handling their own expenses. Danny handed Richard the check. Full payment required tonight. The credit cards on file have been declined. Retries continue. Emma's parents were frantically pulling out their phones, calling their bank, their accountant, anyone who could explain why their platinum cards weren't working. But Jake was standing up slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. Dad? His voice was thick with emotion. I owe you the biggest apology of my life. You don't owe me anything, son. Yes, I do. For 6 months I let them convince me that you were falling apart, that you couldn't handle being a grandfather, that maybe they were right about—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Jake," Emma's voice was desperate now, "this doesn't change anything. Your father still—" "My father," Jake interrupted, "just revealed that he's built an empire while I was too blind to see it. While I was letting you poison our children against the most successful man in our family." The dining room erupted in spontaneous applause. It started at table 12, spread to table 6, and within seconds the entire restaurant was clapping for a man in work clothes who'd just revealed himself as their employer. Emma was looking around desperately. "This is insane. You can't just—" "Ma'am," Danny interrupted politely, "I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to settle your bill and leave." "Leave?" Mrs. Wilson's instructions were very specific about what happens after the reveal. Danny consulted his tablet. Permanent ban from all Wilson properties. Security escort if necessary. Richard was waving his credit card frantically. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake, sir. Mrs. Wilson anticipated this exact scenario." Charlie climbed onto my lap. "Grandpa Tom, does this mean you're really, really important?" "Nobody. It means Grandpa Tom and Grandma Sarah worked really hard to take care of people we love. Like us. Especially like you." Emma made one final desperate play. "Tom, you can't keep the children from me. I'm their mother." "I'm not keeping them from you, Emma. I'm keeping them from people who think love has a price tag." Jake knelt beside my chair. "Dad, can you forgive me? For not believing in you? For letting them make me doubt?" "Son, there's nothing to forgive. You were trying to hold your family together. I understand that pressure. But I chose wrong. I chose their money over your character. You chose what seemed safest for your children. That's what fathers do." Danny was gathering up the documents. "Mr. Wilson, should security escort the Sterling family out?" "No need. I think they understand the situation now." Emma, Richard, and Margaret gathered their things in silence. $4,000 in unpaid bills. A family empire they'd never be part of. Social humiliation that would follow them for years. But the most important part wasn't their exit. The most important part was Lily looking up at me and saying, "Grandpa Tom, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. All of you." As the Sterling family prepared to leave, Danny quietly approached with his tablet and the final documentation. "Mr. Wilson, about their outstanding bill?" I looked at the total. $4,218. 6 months of meals they'd never paid for, plus tonight's celebration that had turned into their funeral. "Process it to Richard Sterling's credit card on file." Danny's fingers moved across the screen. "Declined again, sir. What's the reason?" "Insufficient funds." Jake overheard and winced. "Dad, I can cover it." "No, son, this isn't about money anymore." I looked at Richard, who was still frantically calling his bank. "This is about consequences." Emma tried one last manipulation. "Tom, you can't leave us stranded here. Think about how this looks to the children." "I am thinking about the children. They're learning that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people badly and expect them to pay for your comfort." Danny cleared his throat. "Sir, I should mention, Mrs. Wilson left specific instructions about this scenario too." "Of course she did." "She anticipated that after the reveal, certain family members might find themselves in financial difficulty." Emma's eyes flickered with hope. "Financial assistance?" "Security escort," Danny replied calmly. "She wanted them removed from the property immediately, with documentation of all unpaid bills forwarded to their credit agencies." The hope died in Emma's eyes. "You're destroying our credit rating over dinner?" "Ma'am, you're destroying your credit rating by ordering meals you can't afford while accusing the restaurant owner of being financially irresponsible." Richard finally got through to someone at his bank. His face went ashen during the brief conversation. "There's been a freeze on our accounts," he announced. "Some kind of fraud investigation." Danny nodded sympathetically. "That happens sometimes, when there are questions about lifestyle versus income. The IRS gets curious about how people afford certain expenditures." Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. "You reported us to the IRS?" "Mrs. Wilson documented everything, every meal, every expense, every claim about your financial superiority. When the numbers didn't match your tax filings—" He shrugged apologetically. Emma was looking around the dining room desperately. "Someone help us, please. We just need to borrow $4,000. But the other diners were looking away now. Nobody wanted to be associated with people who'd just been exposed as frauds. Jake stood up and pulled out his wallet. "Dad, I'm paying their bill." "Why?" Because they're still Emma's parents. Because the children are watching. Because it's the right thing to do. I nodded. That's what your mother would have said. Jake handed his credit card to Danny, but I put my hand on his arm. Son, you can pay their bill, but they're still banned from all Wilson properties, and they still need to leave immediately. Emma's voice cracked. Tom, please. My children need their mother. Your children need their mother. They don't need people who tried to convince them their grandfather was a failure. Charlie looked up at Emma with confused eyes. Mommy, why did you say mean things about Grandpa Tom? Emma knelt beside his chair, tears streaming down her face. Because I was scared, baby. I was scared and I made terrible mistakes. Are you sorry? I'm so sorry. Sophie joined the conversation. Sorry, like when I break something and have to fix it? Yes, sweetheart, but some things are harder to fix than broken toys. I looked at Emma, really looked at her for the first time in months. She wasn't evil. She was terrified. Terrified of being poor, of losing status, of having children who might struggle the way she never had. Emma, I said quietly, you can have a relationship with your children, but not with me, not anymore. I understand. And not in any Wilson properties. Sarah was very clear about that boundary. Jake processed the payment while Danny prepared the security documentation. $4,000 for the worst dinner of their lives. As they gathered their things, Richard made one final attempt at dignity. Tom, you won this round, but don't think this is over. Richard, this was never a game. This was about family. And you lost that the moment you tried to buy my grandchildren's love while destroying their respect for their grandfather. Emma hugged each child goodbye, promising to call tomorrow, to work things out, to be better. But the children's responses were different now, polite but distant. They'd learned something important about the difference between people who love you and people who want to control you. After they left, the dining room gradually returned to normal conversation, but servers kept stopping by our table, shaking my hand, thanking me for everything I'd done for the community. Danny packed up Sarah's portfolio carefully. She would have been proud tonight, Mr. Wilson. She was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. That's why she married the right man. As we prepared to leave, Jake put his hand on my shoulder. Dad, what happens now? Now? You and the children come home with me. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Home? The house where your mother and I raised you, where she wanted her grandchildren to visit whenever they needed to remember what real love looks like, Charlie cheered. Can we see your big house, Grandpa Tom? It's not that big, buddy, but it's full of pictures of Grandma Sarah, and stories, and love that doesn't come with conditions. The call came Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Jake, his voice tight with exhaustion. Dad, we need to talk. Emma's having a breakdown. I was already at the first job site, reviewing foundation work for the cancer treatment wing. Construction doesn't stop for family drama, but family always comes first. What kind of breakdown? Complete. She's been crying since we got home last night. She keeps saying she destroyed everything, that she'll never see her children again, that she's become someone she doesn't recognize. I wasn't surprised. Emma had built her entire identity around being superior to people like me. When that illusion shattered, there wasn't much left. How are the kids handling it? They're confused. Charlie keeps asking why Mommy said those mean things about Grandpa Tom. Sophie wants to know if we're still a family. Lily just keeps coloring pictures of you and Grandma Sarah. The innocence of children. They forgave easily, but they didn't forget. Jake, what do you need from me? Permission to bring them to your house. She's not in a good place to be around them right now. My foreman, Miguel, walked over with the morning reports. 300 workers on site, a $20 million project running ahead of schedule. But none of that mattered as much as 3 confused grandchildren. Bring them over. They can stay as long as needed. Dad, there's something else. The video from last night. What video? Someone recorded the whole thing. It's everywhere. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Wealthy in-laws humiliate restaurant owner at his own establishment. 3 million views and climbing. Social media made everything permanent now. The comments are intense, Dad. People are identifying Emma and her parents, posting about their country club memberships, their social media profiles. Someone found their house address. That's not what I wanted. I know. But it's what Emma's dealing with. Her friends won't answer her calls. The country club canceled her membership. Her yoga studio asked her not to come back. Social exile in the digital age moved at light speed. What about Richard and Margaret? Worse, Richard's law firm asked him to take early retirement. Something about character concerns incompatible with firm values. Margaret's bridge club expelled her. The charity boards she served on all found reasons to remove her. The consequences were spreading like ripples in a pond. Jake, I never wanted to destroy their lives. Dad, you didn't destroy anything. You revealed what was already there. The video is going viral because everyone recognizes the situation. Everyone's had someone in their life judge them by their bank account instead of their character. My phone buzzed with a text from Danny. Channel 5 wants interview. Business Journal requesting statement. Decline all? Jake, there's media attention now. How are you handling that? Honestly, I'm proud. For 30 years, you've been building something incredible while I was too blind to see it. Now the whole world knows what I should have recognized years ago. At noon, Danny called with an update that changed everything. Tom, we've got a situation. Not a bad situation, but significant. What kind of situation? The video's driven massive traffic to our websites. Restaurant reservations are booked solid for 6 months. Construction contract requests are up 400%. The phone hasn't stopped ringing. Success bred its own momentum. But there's something else. Emma called this morning. Called the restaurant. Called me directly. She wants to apologize. Not just to you, but publicly. She's asking if she can make a statement. What kind of statement? Full accountability. Admission that she was wrong. That she tried to manipulate the situation. That she underestimated both you and Sarah's legacy. She wants to do it on camera. I thought about Sarah. What would she have wanted? Danny, what's your read on this? Honestly, I think she's genuinely broken. Not just embarrassed. Broken. She realized she became everything Sarah warned her about. That afternoon, Jake brought the children to my house. Not the rental they thought I lived in, but the 4-bedroom home Sarah and I had shared for 25 years. Whoa, Charlie said, walking into the living room. This is your house? This is where Daddy grew up? Jake explained, his own voice thick with memory. The walls were covered with photos. Sarah and me on our wedding day. Jake's graduation. The groundbreaking ceremony for the first restaurant. Sarah holding each grandchild as babies. But the centerpiece was Sarah's memorial corner. Photos from her treatment, letters from patients she'd helped, certificates from the scholarship recipients. Sophie found a photo of Sarah in a hard hat, standing beside me at a construction site. Grandma Sarah helped build things too? Grandma Sarah helped build everything, I said. She was the brains behind all of it. Lily discovered Sarah's desk, still arranged exactly as she'd left it. Business plans, scholarship applications, foundation paperwork. She was working on this the week before she died, I explained. The Children's Cancer Support Program. She wanted families to have help during treatment. Jake was examining a framed letter on the wall. Dad, is this from the governor? Thanking us for the scholarship program. Sarah was supposed to attend the ceremony with me next month. Will you still go? I'll go. She'd want the program to continue. That evening, as the children played in Sarah's garden, Jake and I sat on the back porch where Sarah and I had planned our empire 30 years earlier. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I want a completely honest answer. Always. Are you lonely? Since Mom died, living in this big house by yourself, working all the time, are you happy? I looked at my grandchildren, laughing as they discovered the treehouse Sarah and I had built for Jake decades earlier. Son, I miss your mother every day, but I'm not lonely. I'm surrounded by the life we built together. Every scholarship student, every employee who bought their first house, every family that received free cancer care, that's Sarah's legacy living on. But personally, emotionally, Jake, happiness isn't about having someone, it's about being someone worth having. Your mother taught me that 30 years ago, and losing her didn't change it. As the sun set over the garden Sarah had planted, Charlie ran over and climbed into my lap. Grandpa Tom, can we live here with you? We'll see, buddy, but you'll always have a home here no matter what. Even if Mommy gets better and wants us back. Even then. This will always be your safe place. Because that's what Sarah would have wanted. A place where love didn't come with conditions, where success was measured in character, and where 3 little children would always know they were unconditionally cherished. 3 weeks later, we were back at Sterling Reserve. Different table this time. Table 12. Center of the dining room. No hiding in corners. Jake and the 3 children. A real family dinner, without ultimatums or financial manipulation or toxic power games. Grandpa Tom, Charlie said, cutting into a steak, my teacher wants to visit your construction site. She's doing a unit on community builders, Jake explained. When Charlie told her about the cancer treatment wing, she got excited about field trip possibilities. We can arrange that. Danny loves showing kids around the restaurant, too. Sophie looked up from her coloring. Grandpa Tom, is Mommy going to get better? Emma had been in therapy for 2 weeks. Individual counseling, financial counseling, family therapy, the process of rebuilding herself from the ground up. Your mommy is working very hard to become the person she wants to be, I said carefully. That takes time. Like when I'm learning to read? Exactly like that. Some things you have to practice every day. Jake leaned forward. Dad, Emma wants to meet with you, not to ask for anything, just to apologize properly, face to face. When she's ready, we can talk. She might never be ready. What she did to you, to Mom's memory, I'm not sure I could forgive that if I were you. I looked around the table. 3 children who were learning that love was steady, reliable, unconditional, that grandparents didn't disappear when life got complicated. Jake, your mother spent 30 years teaching me about grace. She'd want Emma to have a chance to earn her way back into her children's lives. But not yours? I don't know yet. Sarah left very specific instructions about protecting this family from people who exploit grief or manipulate children. I have to honor that. Lily wiped her hands on her napkin. Grandpa Tom, are you still sad about Grandma Sarah? I miss her every day, sweetheart. But I'm not sad when I'm with you 3. You make me remember all the happy things about Grandma Sarah. Like what? Like how she used to say that the best way to honor someone's memory is to live the kind of life they'd be proud of. Danny appeared with dessert menus. How's everything tonight, Wilson family? Wilson family. Not Mr. Wilson and guests. Not the table with the complicated situation. Family. Perfect, Jake said. Everything's perfect. As we finished dinner, Charlie asked, Grandpa Tom, what's going to happen next? Next, you're going to finish 2nd grade. Sophie's going to keep making beautiful art. Lily's going to learn to ride her bike. And you? I'm going to keep building things. Keep taking care of people. Keep making sure you 3 never doubt how much you're loved. Even when we grow up, especially when you grow up. Share this if you've ever been judged during your darkest moment, and tell me in the comments, what's the most important lesson about family you've ever learned?